I'm trying to get through this board presentation here of this strategic financial plan, and I just watched the conclusion of Prosser's little speech there, and what I think we're seeing here. This is my opinion. What I think we're seeing here is the board trying to pretend that they're more in charge. You know what I mean by that? They're trying to pretend. We all know, all of us that have watched TriMet for years, that the board is a sock puppet board. No point in saying anything else because everything that happens is done by the general manager and his cronies. They make all the plans, they bring them to the board routinely approves it. Now, with all of this strategic stuff that we're hearing here from Prosser and Schweitzer, there seems to be this attempt to make the appearance that the board is now going to direct more of these financial statistical affairs of the agency. They're going to plan out this roadmap together, the board, and of course they're going to solicit public input. We hear that all the time here. They're always soliciting public input. Do they actually listen to it? I don't know, but they certainly want to get it. At least they say that. My opinion is they really don't give a damn what the public thinks. It's all a show. So with that in mind, listen to this presentation. It's hard to get through this because it's so dull. You just have to listen carefully to it. This is where the action really is, though, because if you watch these people and you watch McFarland and his cronies, this is where you can figure out the mind of the man. This is the nuts and bolts of TriMet. Okay, the power rests in the management and the board. They're the ones that are colluding on what's going to happen, and all of what they're doing does trickle down to everybody else. That includes the riders and the employees. All of what they're doing trickles down, and so you kind of have to listen to this stuff if you care about your future and the future of TriMet. You got to get through it because this is where the action is. It's hard, it's boring, it's intentionally made boring. See what you think after you listen to Prosser.
Some of the elements of the financial plan are already in place. We've got already adopted a contingency ending fund balance policy and debt policies. There'll be more that needs to happen. One of the things that we've been doing is our subcommittee, which is Tiffany and myself, aided with Dave Uxier and Sandy Vinci, have been identifying questions that we think that the board needs to discuss and answer. And we have distributed to the board, and I understand that this has been made available to members of the audience if they want it. And I also understand that we will be posting this information on our website. But just to give you some examples of what some of these are, with the payroll tax, one of the questions, should payroll tax growth resulting from employment growth be dedicated to restoring and expanding service? We don't have a dedicated fund for that now. With passenger fares, should revenue gained from increased ridership be dedicated to restoring and expanding service? With operating costs, to ensure the cost of maintaining an existing service does not reduce TriMet's ability to restore and expand service, should TriMet establish a policy objective of holding its cost per revenue hour growth to no more than the growth in regional inflation? These are things that we can discuss. Reserve funds, looking at that. We have fund balance policy, but we might want to look at creating what I've in my career have always discussed as a counter-cyclical fund, so that we can maintain service over downturns in the economy and our revenue flows. And then with pension funding and OPEB, should we set target dates for fully funding those? So these are some things that we'd like to put before the board for further discussion. We'd also like to solicit further questions from the board, and as we go through the public involvement process, we would like to hear from members of our community if they have things that they think that we should be addressing as part of this policy. We've also put together a timeline, and again, we've provided the board, and I understand that this is available to members of the audience, and it will be posted on the website. There's a lot that TriMet's working on right now, and as I say, everything is kind of interrelated. So we tried to capture some of the big items. So down the left side, we have strategic financial plan, fair policy guideline, transfer policy, employee compensation, service restoration, the Secretary of State's audit, and then also the fiscal year 15 budget. We've tried to lay out across this document kind of, certainly for the strategic financial plan, major work elements and attach that to the calendar. The other items, we haven't really worked at laying that out. They're there to remind us that those things are going on, things that the board will need to be involved in, or that will require significant staff support time, so we need to be aware of. So on this timeline today, to discuss these issues in the timeline on August 14th to get the Climate Smart Communities presentation. On our September 11th board briefing to really make that more of a work session where the board can discuss and get some of these ideas and go into a little more depth in these policy issues and maybe request more information from staff. September 25th and October 23rd business meetings. We would like to have some specific amount of time set aside on our business meeting agenda to hear from the public, for the community groups, interested parties, to get feedback on these questions that we have now and that we will be developing. August 9th, we can do an additional work session. We'll be having our next board retreat in October, so we can also discuss that then, with the idea then that we will have on November 13th at the briefing kind of a final draft for discussion by the board and bringing that to the board at the November 27th business meeting. So this is the timeline that we're seeing. And if you don't have if anybody in the audience doesn't have a copy and wants one, please contact either Dave Oxy or Sandy Vinci.
I think this.
So you heard it. Our friend Henry brought this point up. He made a comment on a previous point, and I'm going to bring up the point that he made on a previous post. And that is, what the hell have they been doing? This is not some new agency that just was formed yesterday. All of a sudden they're coming up with this idea now. It's like, wait a minute, what have you been doing all this time? You want to be involved with all these strategics and all of this now. All of a sudden it's now. Don't forget, McFarland's been in charge for more than 3 years. These people have been, Schweitzer's been there almost 10 years now. And, or is it 9? Whatever. She's been there a long time. This isn't some new thing. So why all of a sudden strategic financial plan? Why all of a sudden? Of course, you have to understand there's some goal that they have in mind at the end of this little presentation fraudulent thing they're doing. They're trying a roundabout way to get what they want using this method. So you always remember, they're doing everything there. It's not random, but there's always some kind of a sinister reason they're going around doing this. In this case, and I'll say it again like I did in the beginning of the movie, they wanted to look like the board is more in charge, because the perception, and the accurate perception, is the board's not in charge. That's what people see, and that's what we see. So I think they're trying to tweak that public perception away from this is all McFarland and his cronies making all these decisions to, well, look, we're actually doing something. I'm almost 100% convinced that's what this is all about, to try to make it look like the board is going to be more involved now. And of course, they're going to listen to the public. Will they? Do they always listen? Do they do anything about it? No.